everyone, welcome to School of Scarlett. I'm so happy to have you here today. So today I want to talk about creation. I want to talk about creation with giving you an example of what I've noticed in the classroom. So when I was teaching children, I taught them in different capacities and therapeutic capacities and in the classroom. But when I was in the classroom, I got to see kind of a diversified group of students. I had about anywhere from 17 to 25 children in a classroom. And when I had these children, a lot of times I would bring Play-Doh out. Now this was a kindergarten class. So each child would get their little ball of Play-Doh. And I would ask them to hold off until I began to give them instructions. So they would all get their Play-Doh and I would observe what certain students did, if they were listening to instructions and what they were doing. So there were some children that would sit there nicely and wait, following instructions. And then there was a lot of other students that would bring their hands into the Play-Doh and already start molding it and touching it, at least poking it. And as soon as I turned around, they would poke it or do something to it. And so there was these children also that even after I gave the instructions of allowing them to now play and mold with the Play-Doh, would still sit back and just observe as other children were playing with the Play-Doh. As they observed this, they were seeing what it was like, and then they would begin. So they would kind of take some time to observe. And so this is very interesting because I think this is kind of a metaphor, an example for us of how we are in life. How do you create in life? Are you one that jumps right into it and starts creating with whatever is there? Or are you one that sits back and watches? Or do you follow instructions of others and just follow blueprints or the tips and advice of other people? So how are you as a creator? So identify yourself as what kind of creator are you? And is that working for you? Is that how you want to be? So we're consciously looking at ourselves and introspecting with that part of ourselves to see how we're creating. So all of this was sparked by a gift that my brother gave me. This is kinetic sand. This is actually really, really fun to play with. You can mold things like this castle without water. It's sand and it's got this magnetic feature to it. It's called kinetic sand that keeps it together. So you can just mold with it. It's really cool. And so that kind of sparked my thinking around creation, that we're all given basically like a bag of sand like this, and it's not has any property to it really. I didn't bring any scissors to open this, but it doesn't really have any properties. We can imagine it really is just sand, right? If I took it out of this bag, it would literally be sand. It wouldn't be in the shape of this castle. It's just sand. So that is how we are in life. We're given energy is what it really is, and that is what we have to create with. Now we may or may not understand how that works. We may have to take some time to observe others or observe life, and that's okay. That's just how it works. In my life, it took a lot of time. It took most of my life to really be in observation. I did a lot of observing in my life. And so at some point you recognize the fact that you are the one that can now create with this. You've observed enough. In my case, I observed enough that now it's time to play with this and really mold with it the things that, I want to mold that are, in my heart. Maybe I do want to make a castle. Maybe I want to make a butterfly. Maybe I want to make a box. Maybe I want to make a big house. Whatever I want to mold with this, I can now do that. So we have to look at our creation abilities. We're all given this sand. Here is our gift. And what do we want to do with it? Do you want to go ahead and jump right in and start creating? Because you have the ability to do so. Now there are these students that sometimes I would get in class that I would give them the Play-Doh, and sadly they would say, "Teacher, I can't do this." I'd say, "Can you make a ball? Can we roll a ball? Put a little piece and start rolling." And they say, Teacher, I cannot do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And they'd cry and they say, I can't do this. And at the time, I had these silly little mottos, and I would tell them, in this classroom, we don't use the word I can't or I don't or I can't or whatever. We say we will try. So we grab the piece of Play-Doh and we try. So that is kind of how I handled that at the time. But you see, in our own lives, we may not have anybody there to give us that pep talk, to tell us to try, to push us a little bit. So we have to take the personal responsibility at times of our creation. And we have to take the next steps that arise for us. And if we do have desires, we have to allow those to be instead of resisting them, instead of shunning them or calling them bad. So it's okay to create whatever you want to create with the sand. It's okay. It's just sand. There's no consequences to it. One of the funny things about when I used to work in home visiting, I would home visit with a lot of parents that had kids with autism and different problems that they were seeking counseling and help for and therapy. And I would bring the Play-Doh, and the children would definitely like playing with the Play-Doh, especially the autistic children really enjoyed it. But you know, the parents would all of a sudden pick up Play-Doh too, and it was really funny. Most of them were moms. They would start to play with the Play-Doh, and believe it or not once, not twice, maybe like a handful of times, these moms would start to mold things with this Play-Doh that were completely inappropriate, like male body parts and stuff like that. And it was just silly, but we could break the ice, we could laugh, we could play, and it was fine. And it was just Play-Doh. We just made this, and then we can smash it and it's gone. It's not any kind of consequence. It's nothing serious. And that is how our life really is. We take it to be so serious, and it does feel serious, but it really is not. And every ending is a new beginning, and everything is really a paradox. So you can't go right or wrong. It just is. So why don't you just get in there and get your hands dirty and start molding and creating with what you got? Because what you got, that's everything. You've been given it all. You just have to begin to mold and create with it. And as you begin to do so, you'll begin to see what it is that you're creating. I even had students that would sit there and say, I don't know how to create anything, or I don't know what I'm doing. And as soon as they would begin to build that ball or roll that ball, they'd say, oh, it looks like a snowman. And then they'd get another piece of Play-Doh and they'd make a bigger ball, and all of a sudden they would have the snowman. So sometimes it just takes that first step of getting involved in life. So I'm here to tell you, if you don't have anyone kind of pushing you to take that first step or to get in there into life and start playing with it, I'd be the one to push you. I'm going to tell you today to get involved in life. Find something that brings you some joy, some passion, some curiosity, and allow yourself to engage in that and see what happens next. I love you all.